So it's a really good morning it is to Bill Kerr. Welcome to the Humanity podcast, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Good morning to you in the warmer locale that you're in. It's very chilly down here for me. It's a frosty one, but thanks for having me.
We're going to 110 countries around the world today, Bill, with our show, and everybody's going to say, where the hell is he? He's got a thick jacket on. He can't be in Australia.
He's in Melbourne. He's in
Melbourne
the cold part
town.
of Australia.
Melbourne town.
The cold, locked down part of Australia, unfortunately. The world's most livable city for 6 years running till last year, and then and now the world's least livable city. We're pretty lucky. Australia's still doing well considering everything going on, and the weather's about to start picking up. So can't complain too much.
Spring in Melbourne, you need a ski jacket on, folks. That's what it's all about. So he's trying to sell it up well. I think he's probably got contacts at the Melbourne tourism office that he's working with there. So good stuff. Now, hey, listen, before I start, I usually, I always do it. I give my guests the opportunity to dedicate their show to someone special in their life. So who do you want to dedicate your show with me today to?
Look, we just talked about travel, I guess, a little bit before the show. You've travelled a lot, I know, and I've travelled a bit, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit throughout the show. And my travel journey and my entrepreneurial journey all dates back to one man, and that's Rusty Young.
Rusty Young?
Rusty Young, the author of Marching Powder.
Okay.
My once favourite book on the planet. And Rusty will be, I'm sorry to say this, Rusty, but now Shantaram has passed Marching Powder, so it's now my number 2. But reading that book kind of set me on the journey of travelling and exploration. It was a crazy read. Changed my life and made me want to travel, which changed my life and led me to starting a travel startup, and then all this other stuff happened from there. So if I trace where I am now back to one moment, it would probably be reading Marching Powder, so let's dedicate this one to Rusty.
Okay, good job. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, the book came out in 2004. Is that right?
Yeah, probably. Something around that. My buddy, one of my best mates, Corey, we used to go back and forth with book recommendations, and he called me up actually when Marching Powder came up, and he goes, mate, I've got one for you. And then, so it's probably about 2004, I'd say.
I've got a book recommendation for you today that I wanted to pass on. And it's probably one you haven't read, I'd say. It's called Maverick by Ricardo Semler.
Oh yeah, Maverick.
Yeah.
What's the story? Like, what's the general vibe? I'm writing it down.
Ricardo is a phenom from Brazil. He's an entrepreneur and business guy who took over his father's company when he was a young boy. In fact, I think he was 21 when he took over the company. And saved it from bankruptcy and turned it into one of the world's most incredible organisations. And it's about how he embraced the power of his people and gave them all the power in the company to run it. And I think it's now either Brazil's number 1 or 2 company. And really? Ricardo's gone on to be a professor and lecturer at Harvard University and doing some other cool stuff. But the book was written way back in the 1980s, so you were probably still in nappies then. But he's...
I was actually still in the lower nether region of my father's lower half at some point.
There you go. But I'm sure you'll find it an inspiring read, as will anybody else out there that's listening in today. Check it out. It's a great book. So I thought I'd start off with a very obvious question, and one that you might take some time to answer, because it's probably not every day you get asked this one, actually. Who is Bill Kerr?
Oh, yeah, that's always a big question, isn't it? It's funny, I had a conversation last night with a girl I've been dating, and we were talking about psychedelics, magic mushrooms, and what they do in terms of shutting down the self-biographical part of your brain, the front of your brain that tells the story about yourself. And we actually were talking deeply, funny you should ask, we were actually talking quite deeply and philosophically about who we are, like I'm probably quite a different idea of who I am than what people, would say about me. But I don't know. I guess I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky guy. I enjoy sport and friends and, staying fit and exercise and so forth. I've travelled extensively. I've started a few businesses. Probably the two most recent, or Adventure Fit Travel, which was a really great travel startup, travel for the wellness community, adventure travel for the wellness community. It was so great. The product was incredible. The brand was awesome. The experience was second to none. And, the business just didn't really, well, it was growing, but it was just, I never really figured it out. And then I've moved on to Athena, my new business now, which is a remote recruitment agency. So I'm pretty deep into that world, and everything's going really great. And I guess I'm a passionate guy that loves learning and understanding things, and I'm just an average bloke, really.
an average bloke. Hey, don't undersell yourself there, mate. You're way more than an average bloke. Now you're a fellow podcaster, and I've been spending some time bouncing around your videos and listening to your podcasts and that. You've come across some pretty interesting people. Is there anybody that kind of stands out in terms of interest levels that really sparked up your inspiration?
Oh yeah, there's heaps really. So Rusty, who I mentioned, author of Marching Powder, Rusty's been on the podcast a couple of times. The good thing, and that they're actually, the first one with Rusty might be my favourite show, and it's pretty interesting having a podcast because you have this unique ability to become friends with, your idols and mentors and, people you look up to. It's incredible because I'm buddies with Rusty now.
Yeah.
And I said when I dedicated this show to Rusty, and what I mentioned about, how it changed the trajectory of my life, I said that to him in person, hey bro, guess what you did? It was really cool. I'm actually standing in front of my podcast wall here, so this is my logo, and you get in the new studio we
fantastic.
We get the guests to sign something on the wall. But we've had I guess with the podcast, we've interviewed so many interesting people. We've interviewed corrupt cops, child soldiers, porn stars, some really interesting conversations. One of them actually, probably my favourite show, was one that I was pretty surprised to be. I was surprised with how good it was. So here's a funny story, right? I was podcasting at the time with my co-host Tom Ahern. He's one of the funniest blokes you'll ever meet on the face of the earth, and quite a deep thinker, and he's really good. He's not with the show anymore. He's doing his own stuff, and we're actually thinking about looping back and doing some things together soon. But anyway, so we had this plan to interview Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was like our main, dream guest. So we said, all right, if we're going to interview Arnold Schwarzenegger, how do we reverse engineer that? How do we go, here's Arnold, what are the steps that we need to take to get to Arnold? And the most obvious step was to interview Tony Doherty. And Tony Doherty, if he listens to this, he's going to feel like we've totally played him, because really, we were like, let's get Tony Doherty on the show. He's best mates with Arnie. We had no real idea of what it would be like to sit down and interview Tony. He's a pretty impressive guy. He's got a really good business. His gym's incredible. He's a promoter of the Arnold Sports Festival in Australia. Best mates with Arnold himself. So we went into the show because we used to interview guests, the two of us, and just filled with banter, lots of laughter and stuff. And by the end of the show, you leave with a good friend. You really feel like you had a great connection. And I knew that would be the case with Tony. It was just, let's get in there. Let's get Tony on the show. We'll get him on 3 months later. Arnold will be over in about 2 months after that, and we're in. We've done it. We're in with Arnold. So that was the play. But then when we sat down with Tony, man, I think it's episode 106 in our show. It was about 2 years ago. And it was one of those shows where the content that starts to come out of the guest's mouth starts to give you goosebumps, which doesn't always happen. But and it was really all around his philosophy about gyms and fitness studios and what he's been able to do at Doherty's gym. Mm-hmm. And because when we started the show, we used to interview lots of wellness, health and fitness and so forth experts, and I loved meeting the people, but the content was very, very much like, how do you get your best back squat? What are the macros you need to eat to lose weight? And all that stuff. I'm pretty comfortable with it, and I also I'm not that interested in it. I love the people, but this show was totally different. He was talking about his gym from a philosophical point of view. He was like, I say to all my staff, no matter what type of a day you're having, you have to have a smile on your face when somebody comes through the door. When you greet somebody, you have to greet them with energy, with passion, with excitement, because for most people, this is the best part of their day. Yeah. For most people, and I'd always kind of really thought along those lines, and because I really believe in the concept of a third place. So your first place is your home, your second place is your work, and you need a third place. And now that we're so disconnected, really, we live in apartment blocks. We take public transport to work. We sit and stare at our phones all day. Now that we're so disconnected, more and more so, we need a third place. It's just a community. That's what it is. It's a knitting club or a football club or a painting studio that you go to, whatever it is. But for most, or not most, but for a lot of people, it's the gym. And I've always really believed heavily in that. And the way that Tony was able to just elaborate on kind of his thoughts around building the greatest community for people that, have nothing in their lives, or like people, it was just a beautiful conversation. And like, Tony's a meathead, he's a meathead with tats all over him and swears like a sailor, but a really deep guy. And I shouldn't say surprised, but I was just like, whoa, this has been such a sick conversation. So that was really one of my favourites. We've interviewed some of the guests on the wall here that you can see. I've got Nick Scaraju. He's a endurance push cyclist. So he cycles like 40 days in a row, cycled from Canada to bloody Mexico. Yeah. Dr. James Martin, he's a criminologist. His field of study is dark web drug dealing.
Right.
I nearly became a dark web drug dealer straight after the show. I was like, whoa. That is incredible. So you mean you can never catch these guys? But just everybody really. Our thing is like, here's another good one here, Chris Smith. So Chris is really high up in the world of esports and e-gaming, and that was actually an interesting conversation because I didn't really let Chris off the hook in terms of like, I wanted to press him on like, I don't believe it's a good thing for the world, and I was like respectful and in my questioning, but it was really like we went back and forth, and it was just a real good, like, I guess, mature conversation around it. So, but our whole thing is telling interesting, important stories. So we've been able to do lots of it, and I feel like I'm going to continue to do it for forever and a day, because you change the world through storytelling, through changing people's thoughts and changing their minds, and we're human beings are driven by stories. So the more things that you can illustrate that are worth talking about and get people thinking, it's really quite powerful, I reckon.
What got you into podcasting? What was the catalyst to get you involved in it?
I remember I was running Adventure Fit, my travel startup, and I went to just like a free event, one of those events that I used to get sucked into these things, back in the day when I was getting my entrepreneur stuff, and it was like 2 days, free seminar, blah, blah. And I went there. It was actually, don't know what it was, don't know who hosted it, but it was at the exhibition centre. And it was actually pretty good because I've been to a couple of things since then, a couple of these like 2-day workshops, and you just sit down for 16 hours to get pitched for 14 and a half of them and get about an hour and a half of value over the 2 days. This one wasn't. It was really around content and business growth and stuff. It was actually pretty good. And they were talking about podcasting, and I've always been, I'm a creative. Like when all my mates were doing woodwork and this kind of stuff in school, I was doing art and design and media and so forth. So I've always liked anything to do with creativity. So and it was right when podcasting, no one was really doing it. And I'm somebody who just jumps in the deep end and learns how to swim on the fly kind of thing. So I was like, all right, cool, let's have a crack at this. So because we had with Adventure Fit, the initial business model was adventure travel for the fitness community or wellness community. So we would go hiking, and we were, in Mexico, for example, go and see the main ruins. But we would also train and do mindfulness-y stuff. Mm-hmm. And we used to get high-level athletes to come along and do, a gymnastics workshop, or like a strength training workshop, or like a dietetics workshop. And so I just had access to people that I thought were really noteworthy, and I thought, it'd be good to get some of those guys and girls on the show. And that's how the show started. It started as health and fitness. Yeah. But then at about show number, it started as health and fitness, and then at about show number 16, we found a woman named Diane Mcgrath. Yeah. And we saw Diane. Do you know Diane? She's from Melbourne. She's a TEDx speaker. Yeah, she's really good. She's really good. She comes from like a biohacking background. Like she'd done TED Talks on biohacking. So she came across our radar for the show from the biohacking side of it. Uh-huh. But then when we started to do research on Diane, we figured out that she was one of the final 100 in the running for the Mars One project, the one way to get to Mars. Yeah. So before the show, we're like, hey guys, am I allowed to swear on here or not? Just so I know. No swearing, is it?
No, go for it. Go for it. It's okay.
Now I'm going to feel a little bit forced, but I just wanted to know. But no, so I said to the boys, I said, lads, fuck talking about this chick about biohacking. I said, she's moving to Mars. So anyway, the conversation became Mars One and what on earth has driven her to want to, be one of the pioneers to leave this planet. The whole thing never got off the ground. It was always a risk of that happening. It was a bit of a pie in the sky idea, but it was also legitimate enough to like sit down and have a real conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And then so the podcast kind of morphed from very, very early, which was a bit weird because it didn't really tie into the brand that it was supposed to tie into, my travel company, but it morphed from like health, fitness, wellness, travel to just interesting and important topics,
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself during the podcast journey? Because it's quite a phenomenal journey once you get deep and nasty into it. And I kind of say anybody that's done over 100 episodes of a podcast is, pretty genuine about it, because a lot of people drop out in the early days. But you've hung in there. You've done over 250, haven't you? Podcast episodes?
Something like that. Yeah, probably 250 now.
Yeah.
Look, I've learned a lot in terms of like individual bits and pieces. Somebody's told me something that I've been like, oh wow, I've never thought of the world like. So that is great, seeing different perspectives from some really intelligent people. So there's a million examples of that. But from a personal perspective, I guess it's matured me in terms of like having conversation and how to hold a good conversation. And what I mean by that is, so Chris Smith, again, the example of the esports guy, he said to me after the show, he goes, man, that was such an interesting show. He goes, I've never been on a show and had anyone push back. Like I've never been on everyone, because everybody just, if you have a guest on, you just, oh yeah, cool. Like Tommy was a shocker, my old co-host. We'd have a guest on and Tommy would be like a bit flustered by like, butterflies in the stomach kind of stuff, real. And then Tommy's a lot younger. He's about eight years younger than me. And sometimes like the guest would be just talking down this line of reasoning, and the guest could be going, oh yeah, so obviously guys how the sky's red, and Tommy would be like, oh yeah, no, of course, yeah, so the sky's red, go on, follow on. And then so I think the art of just having a good conversation and knowing that people can have differences and that's okay, and like let's just talk our way around it and let's understand each other a little bit, because I think of my podcasting hero, probably a lot of guys out there podcasting hero wise would be, everyone's got a podcast, would be Rogan, Joe Rogan. And when I'm in a conversation where I don't really follow what the guest is talking about, like Wim Hof, for example, we interviewed Wim, and I feel like I didn't let him off the hook, like not in a rude way, but like I wanted to understand what he was talking about. Like he's so weird and wacky. I'm like, hang on, you need it. And I feel like I've really matured as a conversationalist, I guess.
Yeah.
And that actually that leads into all walks of life. Like I can hold a conversation with somebody, totally disagree, but be respectful about it and have a great conversation and a kind of meeting of the minds and so forth. So it's actually been really good for me personally from a growth perspective, taking aside everything that you get from like just the ability to spend time with people that you look up to, admire, want to learn from and so forth is absolutely incredible. You would obviously know yourself as a long time podcaster. Like it's a superpower in life and in business and in everything. It is really quite incredible. So I'm not surprised that podcasting has taken off like it is. It's a very authentic form of communication, and it's just an awesome thing to do as a human being. Like sit down and have long form conversations with somebody.
When did you do your first show? How many years ago?
It was about 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, I reckon. Something like that.
So yeah, even in that time, the landscape's really changed dramatically, hasn't it? I think in terms of, you've said it in a couple of your shows in terms of, I watched one the other day with you chatting with one of your mates, and you were talking about the evolution of the podcast industry and how it has evolved so much. And I remember when I first got into it, everybody said, well, make sure your podcasts don't go longer than 40 minutes because no one will listen to it and all this garbage, and you've got, Rogan, as you say, he's one example of someone that sits down for 3 hours and has an in-depth conversation and gets millions of people tuning in, right? And that's what I love about it, is that in-depth, you can really, and I think you've mentioned this a few times, you talk about, walking around and you've got this third voice in your head, right? You've got yourself, your father, and Joe Rogan's in there playing around a game of squash, right?
My surrogate father.
Yeah. So I like that because it brings us up close and personal with the person because of the intimacy we have when we're listening to a podcast. And unlike a video where we just tend to turn off pretty quickly, the podcast tends to go with us if we're walking the dog or we're doing a gym workout or something else, right? I find that really phenomenal. I've got a little bit of a word going on in my ear. Everybody wants to know, how did the date go last night?
Yeah, it went pretty well actually. So I've had a total lockdown, just celibacy sesh. I think I probably haven't, I don't probably want to go into it too much, but yeah, it's been a
hang on. We want you to go into it too much, so the case of you not wanting to.
No, well, look, it's been a little while in between. Oh shit. Oh, put it this way. I didn't have sex between the years of 0 to about 15, and that was my longest stretch. This would be my second longest stretch.
Okay. Okay.
I've just been head down working and not really in the dating game and so forth. Just because of the obvious coronavirus and so forth. But I decided a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I probably should really start to, weather's warming up, lockdowns are starting to, lift. And I'm 34 and I do want kids and a family at some point, so I'm not really in a hurry. I'm busy doing my own thing and so forth, but no, it was good. It was just pretty okay. Just a nice girl that lives just down the road from me, and she's into yoga and a few other bits and pieces, and we got a bit in common. So it was pretty good. But let's probably leave that there, I reckon, Mark, because I don't want to put my foot in
in your mouth, proverbially. I was just going to say, you can't go out to restaurants at the moment, can you, though? So it wasn't a restaurant date, was it?
Well, it was actually funny because we were like, all right, cool, let's catch up on Friday, and then it was terrible weather, and it was just like, it was bucking down with rain. We were supposed to go for a big walk, and I was like, well, what do we do? What do we actually do? So I just went around, we had a couple of drinks and met some housemates and did a bit of, this and that, just hanging out and whatever. So, there's not much. You're pretty limited right now, pretty limited in general what you can do in Melbourne. So, but we're doing well. I've just been using this time to work. I've been working more than ever, and I work pretty hard as it is. So, yeah, it's been a bit boring and a bit difficult, but it's not going to be COVID-19 stage 4 lockdowns forever. So, I'm just getting through it, and yeah, things will be back to normal and whatever soon, I'd say.
So, for everybody listening around the world, we've got a premier in Victoria. His name's Daniel Andrews. Have you had him on the show at all, Bill, to have a chat?
No, I haven't had him on the show. Don't know if anyone would listen to that one. Actually, it'd probably get about 1,000 unsubscribes at the outset. But haven't had the big fella on there. I definitely would have a few questions for him. But look, I tell you what, the thing is with coronavirus from my end, Mark, is I don't like Daniel Andrews, right? I don't despise the guy, but I don't really like him. I don't really agree with lots of the stuff he's done, and it's fair to say he's fucked a lot of it up, But having said that, so I am somebody that thinks that the lockdown should have happened, and I think in hindsight now, it's been a phenomenal effort so far, and we're going to be in a better position than 98% of the rest of the world. So, but, hindsight's a wonderful thing. It was very, very controversial to go such a heavy lockdown, however long ago it was, 6 weeks ago. But the problem from my end is not the fact that we're in lockdown or we're not in lockdown. The problem is there's two options here from my perspective, and not everyone agrees with me, but from my perspective, there's two options. There's option A, which is let it rip, people die, businesses go under, and hospitals are overrun. Lock it down, mental health rises, people get sick and people die, and businesses are turned to shit. Pick your poison. Option A or option B. Do you want this shithouse option on the left or this absolutely rubbish option on the right? And, we're in the middle of an unprecedented global pandemic, and the only thing that's annoying me about it is so many people want to throw shade at everybody else, anti-maskers, people that are for the lockdown, Daniel Andrews is opposition, whatever. It's like, you guys suck, you guys are wrong, fuck this, fuck that. And it's like, guys, this is nobody's fault. Let's just do our best, look after each other, stay positive, and try and work through it, there's no times are tough enough. Like, let's just keep the shade off to the side. There's no reason to throw shade at everybody and everybody and anybody. So that's the whole thing for me. It's like there's just no good option, you know.
Have you?
I'd much rather be in Australia than, as I said, you know.
Yeah. Have you met Daniel Andrews?
No.
No, you haven't? Okay, because I was interested when you said you don't like the guy, and I thought, oh, you must have met him and made his mind up based on meeting the guy, right?
And that's right. I shouldn't have said that, because I got no reason to dislike him.
Yeah, and I want to.
I should have said he's not my favourite.
Okay, yeah, based on the things that he's done, fair enough. So I just want to bring up another point too, that a lot of people are getting a little bit misled around the world, of course, on all this COVID stuff, and I've actually done some research myself, because I thought, okay, everybody's talking about this thing, whatever it is, and I should educate myself on it. So I went out there in search of the big wide world, and stayed away from Wikipedia. By the way, I don't use Wikipedia as much as you guys do on your show, and I found out that we shouldn't be calling it a pandemic, because a pandemic apparently is only something that wipes out 2 million people in total during its life strain, and this virus hasn't even, and I don't want to say even, but it hasn't wiped out more than 1 million people yet across the planet. So to actually give it a name of a pandemic, we actually have a pandemic in the world of obesity, and we have a pandemic of heart disease, and we have a pandemic of cancer deaths every year around the world, but this virus unfortunately has been given the label of being a pandemic. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well today. That seems to be a fact that's going around.
So there's probably a global alcoholism pandemic and a global car crash pandemic, and there's probably a lot of global pandemics going on at the moment, Mark. You would say it's funny, isn't it? Yeah, it's not. It doesn't seem to be as dire as what people first predicted, but I guess people don't really know how to. We didn't really know what we didn't know, and I guess now we're a bit more wise to it, and I don't know what it'll look like in the future.
Do you know how many people die in Australia every day?
Say that again, sorry, mate.
Do you know how many people die in Australia every day?
No, definitely don't.
445 people die in Australia every day from either natural causes or car accidents or anything like that. That was pre-COVID-19, and there's not a lot more added to it because of COVID, because we haven't had a lot of deaths in Australia. But 445 people lose their lives every day that come to the end of their journey in this country. And there's a website with all those statistics on it that you can look up and find out what are the causes of those deaths and all the rest of it, which is another interesting fact. I'm not sure whether many people would know, regardless of the country they're living in today, how many people actually pass away every day in their particular country. It's a statistic that maybe you should look up one day and check it out. Let's talk about travel. You've been to a lot of interesting places around the world, and I'm not going to ask you the stupid question of which one is your favourite, because I know that you don't have one in particular. You tend to group them down based on the places you like, the mood you're in at the time, and probably the people that you're enjoying it with. But you told an interesting story about a taxi ride in Johannesburg, and South Africa is a place that I enjoy going to on a regular basis. What happened to you in Johannesburg?
Oh, far out. I don't know how much of this story I should tell, but what happened was I went to the pub in Johannesburg with my mates from Joburg, and they're all a bunch of guys that I met over in Peru, and we're travelling together, and it was quite this is one of the two instances in my life that I thought I was going to die, and it was my own fault. Yeah. What happened was, so I went to the bar. With my mates, and we were drinking beers and so forth. And I'm hesitating because there's a real interesting part of the story which I probably shouldn't tell, but I'll tell you anyway. So what happened was.
We'll get more information on that date last night too by the end of the show. I feel that coming up.
Oh shit! I forgot about it. Probably shouldn't. I'm going to look like a dirtbag if I tell this story. So what happened was, I went to the bar with my mates in Johannesburg, and anyway, I was like the one Australian guy, and I was this interesting specimen from a faraway land and what have you, and I only had one night in Johannesburg because I was going down to Cape Town to start a trip with my buddy, but I said I've got to fly through Joburg, and I love these guys. Like, these buddies of mine are just the greatest guys. I'm never going to fly through Joburg, you know, at least not in the next probably decade. So I was like, I have to spend a night in Joburg. So I went out with my mates, went around to my mate's place and hung out for the day, and then the boys took me down to a place called the Baron. And then anyway, what ended up happening was I was just drinking beers with my mates, and then I went up to the bar, and a South African, this local South African girl came up to me and was like, we just started talking, and it was one of those, like, I was like, oh, this chick seems like she's kind of interested in me. And then it was really awkward though. She was really like, wouldn't go, she was like half a foot away from my face and like really aggressive. And I was like, all right, cool. I just wanted to drink beers with my mates, you know? And then anyway, so then we started kissing. I didn't really want anything to do with this. I swear to God, Mark, I didn't want anything to do with this whole scenario. I just wanted to drink beers with my mates. And then anyway, we started kissing, me and this girl, but right at the bar, and I was like, oh my God, this is not what I came here for. Like, and I ended up having to say to this girl, I was like, I need to shake this chick just so I can spend time. I've only got like 2 more hours with these guys for the next decade. So I said, look, I thought we'd go out and hang out outside for a second, and then like I'd come back in and just, you know, I'd just go over to the boys. So I said, hey, do you want to just go sit outside for a second? And the girl goes, no, come with me, and grabbed my hand and dragged me to the toilets, and we had sex in the toilets. So that's the part of the story I didn't want to tell. So I was like, oh shit. And then from that point onwards, I lost my mates because it was this huge bar in Johannesburg. I lost my mates and was with this girl. So anyway, after about an hour or two, I was like, all right, the boys have left. I bumped into them at one point, and then they were going home, and I was like, okay, cool. And I was hanging around with this girl, this South African girl, and then what happened was my mates had gone home, and I decided, all right, cool, well, we weren't going home together, me and this girl, for whatever reason, and then I said, I'm going to go stay back at my mate Will's house. All right, cool, see you later. And I walked out to get a taxi, and a taxi down to this bar cost about like 20 USD, like the equivalent of 20 USD. And I knew the Rand conversion to Australian dollar or US dollar or whatever. And then I jumped in the taxi, and I said, I gave the guy the address, and he tried to charge me like $200, 200 USD pretty much. And I'm the most passive guy, like very non-argumentative. I hate confrontation, but I also, and I wasn't really confrontational. I was just like, hey mate, no, I'm not paying $200. Like, I know, you know, I'm staying with my buddies. I've been here plenty of times. Tried to like act like a semi-local. I said, I'm not paying $200. And then we got in a little disagreement, and then he started yelling at me and calling me names, and all these guys circled around the car and started calling me names as well, and pointing the finger and telling me I'm dead and I'm going to die and we're going to kill you, motherfucker, and this kind of business. And Johannesburg at the time, I think Venezuela has passed it up, but Johannesburg at the time was the homicide capital of the world, and I knew that. You know, I knew that you don't fuck around in Johannesburg. You know, like, life is really cheap over there. And then so it's not a fun story. It's not a happy story. This story. So and then for probably about a minute or two, I was getting yelled at, and in my recollection, the car was getting shaken. You know, but maybe it was just that was not the case. But and getting yelled at, you're going to die, we're going to kill you. And then the taxi driver started driving, and I was just apologising, and geez, I feel like I was nearly even crying. I was just like, I'm so sorry, please. And then he wasn't saying anything, and then I thought I was dead. I thought I was going to die, because it doesn't sound that scary, but it was scary to me.
Yeah, no,
and I got home safely.
I wanted you to tell the story, because, you know, I speak to people every day on the show about travel and stuff, and we're always, you know, talking about the glamorous sides of travel, and 99.9% of the time when we get out there and we go around the world, and I'm not trying to beat up on Joburg or South Africa either, by the way, so it's a case of we sometimes find ourselves in situations that take us way out of our comfort zone, right? And what did that experience kind of say to you? Did it teach you anything?
It just taught me to be a little smarter, for sure. Like, the real world out there is not to be fucked with, you know, for lack of a better term. Like, it's, you know, I've been in some because I've travelled probably 50 countries and backpacked for about 4 years of my 34 years, and I've put myself in some bad situations, and you don't. Some people don't get out of those bad situations. I had this particular thing happen in South Africa, and then when I was in same guys, so my South African mates and a bunch of other travel buddies, we met over in Latin America 6 months later for Christmas and New Year's, and when we were over there, my South African mates were arguing with a taxi driver in Bolivia over off. So we got ripped off, and they were arguing and just making a real big deal out of it. And I was like, guys, just get out of the taxi, just stop. Because in Bolivia, in La Paz in Bolivia, about a week before this conversation with my mates and the taxi driver, a backpacker got shot and killed by a taxi driver arguing over 50 Bolivianos, which is 75 cents or whatever it is. Yeah. So, I mean, the real world, the thing is, we're very lucky, Mark, you know as well as I, you've travelled extensively. We're very lucky with our quality of life and, our security and our safety and so forth in Australia and in the United States and the UK and, a lot of the Western world. But that's not how the rest of the world live. The rest of the world live, we're the exception, not the rule, and a lot of the time there's not homicidal maniacs kicking around every other, place that's, third world countries, but there's people that are out to survive. And if you need to survive, you'll do a lot of things that you wouldn't ordinarily do if you're not just trying to survive. Take away everything that I've got, all of my money, all of my security, my house, my family, and what, and give me only a few options to survive. I'm a human being. I'm gonna go to my survival instincts, and I'm probably gonna do a lot of things that I would not ever do right now. It's just human nature.
Yep.
So you just got to be smart, I guess. It's just.
So has all that travelling to those kind of places and having those kinds of experience, has it made you more empathetic towards those people that have less and aren't as lucky as what we are?
I definitely think so. I think in terms of it from a business perspective, as a leader of a company, I think empathy is my greatest skill. Really, I think it's funny that you use that word, because I actually use that word a lot in terms of I don't use the word a lot, but that is the one word that I'll go to in terms of leadership. I'm really obsessed with leadership. So in terms of corporate leadership, community, being, and I'm not saying I'm a super fantastic leader, but I take it seriously. And I think one of the things that, is a real great character trait of a good leader is empathy. Understanding your people, understanding their frailties, understanding how they tick, and being okay with, the fact that nobody's perfect. So I think, it's, I think more than anything, I definitely have empathy for, for a lot of, others that I've seen and situations I've seen around the world. But I think travel just wisens you up, it makes a more well-grounded human being. If you go and travel to some of the places that you and I, and many others have traveled to, and you see how the other side of the world works, it's, we're very, very blessed and very, very lucky. So I think having some, the ability to understand that and be grateful and be empathetic is huge, and I think me as a leader at Athena, as CEO at Athena and leading the team there, what I do now, I think all of my leadership skill sets were from traveling, really, just life skills. I didn't study anything. I didn't go to school, so I didn't go to university. I got expelled from school twice. Sold drugs when I was 18 for a little bit of time. I fucked everything up, and I travelled extensively after I was about 23. I had some stuff that I went through, and I decided to start travelling. And then everything that I've learned is just life lessons, really. And I think, it's prepared me to have a pretty diverse set of skills, or I just feel like I'm well-rounded and probably pretty grounded. I feel like that is the case. I'm certainly not perfect. I certainly stuff a lot of things up at work and in life, all the time. But that's okay. But I think travel has allowed me to be a more well-rounded person. I'm not going to say a better person, but a more well-rounded person, for sure.
Have you read Johann Hari's book, Chasing the Scream?
No, I haven't. But Tommy, my co-host of the podcast that I mentioned, he's just read it, and he mentioned that it's one of his favourite books of all time. And I've read Lost Connections, and I believe Lost Connections at the end of this century will be the most important book of this century, like How to Win Friends and Influence People of the previous century or something of that nature. Yeah. I think it's going to be the book. I love Johann Hari. I actually haven't read Chasing the Scream, but
it's incredible. It's really an incredible book, and it was actually recommended to me by a heroin addict and said, you got to read this book because it's what changed my life. And I dived into it, and hats off to I think you've had Johann on your show, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, it was while I was away on an AdventureFit trip, and Tommy led that show because Johann was only just briefly in Melbourne. So right. I was really disappointed that I didn't get to meet him myself and have the chance to meet him. But Tommy and he had an awesome show. He's an incredible guy. It's just there's a lot of sadness going on at the moment, and his book is probably the clearest. What would you say? Clearest. Well, it's just a great book. Yeah, it paints a really neat picture of kind of what the issues are and how we can kind of fix them.
Are you seeing a lot of the effects of Corona up close and personal? Are you with friends and stuff in relation to what's going on at the moment?
Nah, I don't really know. One of my buddies got coronavirus, and he told me the other day, and he was fine. So for me, it's not something that's personally affected me at all. I've got a lot of friends and family that are stressed and, about to close their businesses and, things of that nature. So there's a lot of that going on. But, I haven't seen... To me, it's just life as usual, just with, just inside.
Yeah, right. Okay. Any... I want to talk to you about some of the struggles I've had. I was close to committing suicide a number of years ago and went through a very dark patch in my life. And one of the things that got me out of that actually was compassion towards others. Like I actually stopped feeling sorry for myself, and in my case, in my situation, it was a case of there was an epiphany one day, and I was actually watching a show on television whilst I was thinking about how I was going to commit suicide, and it was the vision on the television of a person that I saw who was in a worse predicament than what I was in. And I actually ended up reaching out to that person on the TV show and and connecting with them, and we actually became friends, and we actually started an organisation together, and that ended up changing my life. So yeah, I can relate to, we all go there, right? We all have those dark places that we go to at different times of our life for different reasons. And you've alluded to it a couple of times now throughout the show. COVID's having this other impact, isn't it? Forget about the virus for a second. It's all this other stuff that's going on around it that's just doing people's heads in.
Yeah, actually, because Athena, my company now, it's a remote recruitment agency, so we do just fill remote roles for businesses. And I spoke to my buddy Michael Inglis, so he's been on the show on our podcast a couple of times. He's a sports psychologist and just general psychologist. He owns a practice in Collingwood, which is really, really great. It's called the Mind Room, and when I go see my psychologist, it's at the Mind Room. And anyway, he's just like a buddy of mine, and I gave him a call just to check in, see what he'd been up to, and so forth. And he ended up kind of talking to me about us doing some work for him, trying to find him a remote psychologist. He said that they're now closed to all new business indefinitely and can't actually service the clientele that they have, their database. It's like 30% month on month growth in mental health disorder, which is that's like if you were growing a business and you're growing 30% month on month, that's exponential growth. So there's a lot of that going on, and I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? Like, I feel like if there was not a lockdown, we'd probably be in quite a similar position. Like you look at Sweden, and they're probably they didn't do that much better than Denmark. I don't know enough about it, but yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff going on out there, and it's really sad. I'm a really quite an empathetic person. I mentioned that, but I guess more like a emotional person. I see other people struggling, and I kind of take it on. I don't know why. It's not a good thing, you know. But you can kind of feel it. You can feel it in the air, and it's just it's not nice. It's not nice. My grandfather killed himself, and I got lots of mental health issues in my family, and myself been through a bunch of stuff, and it's just so sad that human beings go through stuff like that. It's just we need to figure something out. Have you ever read, speaking of books, this is very similar to Lost Connections by Johann Hari. Have you read Tribe by Sebastian Junger?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that's another fantastic book. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that book and Lost
sitting on your desk in front of you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right here. It's right here, actually. I've got about 50 of them. I used to give this book to...
You'll start thinking I'm stalking you soon because I know what's over your shoulder.
It was a bit creepy, actually. Very I used to give this book to Adventure Bit clients when our clients would come on. I'd give them, they'd get a gift pack and they'd get one of these books. It's a pretty heavy book to give to your clients, but it's a really important book. I feel like this book and Lost Connections really help you understand what's going on with your own. If people are going through anxiety and depression and stuff, if you read this and you read Lost Connections, you'll kind of figure out why.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty straightforward, and I feel like there's a lot of sadness and anxiety and depression and so forth at the best of times. Take out coronavirus. Let's go back to November of last year, and we're still having the same conversation. We're just not saying 30% month-on-month growth, but we're still talking about mental health epidemics or whatever it is. So it's just, I feel like we've gone a little too far in terms of I like science. I'm excited for us to go to Mars. I love the fact that we can trace back to the Big Bang with relative certainty. I can't get my head around that. It goes straight over my head, but I know that it's science is incredible. But human beings, evolution is adapting to your external circumstances, I guess, and we can't adapt quick enough to the pace of change in the world. So we're really ill-suited, I feel like, to the culture and society that we live in, and that's obviously what's forcing us into these dark places. So it's a bit of a shame. I don't know what you do about it. So
do you have any tools that you use? Like, a lot of people are into meditation. I do meditation myself. Do you have any tools that you go to when you're feeling that way?
I have a lot, actually. And one of my best friends was suicidal, tried to kill himself a couple of years ago. And we sat down and had a beer one night, and he was talking to me about this, that, and the other. And I started giving him some feedback and some ideas and whatever. And he asked me, he goes, how do you know so much about this stuff? And I said, well, because I went through shit-ass times myself, and I became obsessed with the human mind, psychology, me as a person, how I think, culture and society. Like, if you try and understand all that stuff, you do build a pretty robust skill set to attack, periods of your life that might be a bit darker. So, I have a few things that I go to. I meditated every day for probably 4 or 5 years. I haven't meditated in 2020. Long story. I'm happy without it at the moment. That's cool. I've just got other things that I prioritize. But I guess the thing for me that I always go back to and that I always recommend to people is a morning routine, actually. And that can be anything in terms of whatever your best morning routine might look like. For me, and again, like I said, I meditated every year for 5 years, and I'm not doing it at the moment. I'm not really dialed right in with a morning routine at the moment. But for the most part of the last 5 years, and if I get to a place where I'm really stressed and run down, and I can feel something coming on, or if I am in the depths of a bit of anxiety or depression, then I really try and pull myself back to getting my morning routine down pat. And mine, this is just mine, but my morning routine, would look something like, get up at 6 a.m, have a cold shower. I actually start with warm and finish with like 2 minutes of cold. It's actually quite easy. And then I would meditate. Did you
start doing that because of Wim Hof?
Yeah.
Was that the inspiration?
Okay.
Yeah,
I did. I did. And then, some days I might do a little bit of exercise. I always have a rowing machine at my house. I've got a rowing machine, so maybe I do some rowing. Gratitude journal, journaling, walking my dog, whatever it is. But what I actually did at one point, Mark, because I couldn't get I couldn't get into a good morning routine. I was in a really dark, depressed place. Actually, you probably wouldn't say it was depression, but it was like such heavy-duty anxiety and social anxiety. So it was really negatively affecting my life, and I couldn't get into a good routine. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm a competitive guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gamify this. So what I did was I wrote on a whiteboard, I wrote the days of the week, and then I wrote 10 different things that would be a great start to my day. So that was some of the things I mentioned: meditation, cold shower, gratitude journaling, regular journaling, cooking my breakfast, walking my dog, whatever they were. There was 10 of them. And then what I did from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I went through, and at the end of the day, I would tick what I was able to accomplish for that day.
Yep.
So, I might have done 2 or 3 things in the morning routine on a Monday, then 2 or 3 things, whatever. At the end of the week, the total might have been 15. I'm like, okay, cool. Next week, I'm going to beat 15.
Yeah.
And then, so what I ended up doing was, over the course of about 12 weeks, I built in this incredible morning routine where I was so competitive with myself, where I was getting it like overly so, something that was probably a little bit unsustainable, but I got to, I created the habit, and then, the habit kind of stuck around. And I still go back to that when I'm, when I need to kind of get back on track. And, for others, I really think that because my routine is going to be different to your morning routine.
Yeah.
You might not want a meditator. You might not like cold showers. You might not have a dog. So it might be, it might be waking up and doing yoga. It might be waking up and doing, 2 minutes of moving your body. It might be waking up and, making love to your partner. It might be waking up and, making a green smoothie. Whatever it is. So, but just building in, 10 things that are going to be good for your morning routine, and trying to knock off 3 or 4 of them every morning. I'm not robotic. I don't want to do the same thing every single day, but like trying to get into a habit, because if you're in a dark place, right, or if you're in a shit spot, and so this is why the third place is so important, going back to that community aspect, because first place and second place, oftentimes one of the two is going poorly for you, and sometimes both are going poorly.
Yeah.
So if you're home, if you've got some shit going on at home, and work is, your boss is an asshole and you're not engaged or whatever, then you're really not getting many wins on the board. So, to really try and create some positivity in your life, I really feel like if you can carve out some time from 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 6:30, whatever it is, wake up, a bit earlier than you would normally do, and give yourself 2.5 hours, 2 hours to do your thing, accomplish things for yourself. And then by the time the day starts, for me, right, if I get my morning routine absolutely nailed, then by the time the day starts, if from 9 a.m. till 5 at work is an absolute shitstorm, and then I have a prick of an afternoon and evening, I've lost both the day and the evening, then I'm still not that far behind, because I won the morning. Yeah. And if you have a good morning and a good day at work, but you have a shit evening, well, you've still won the day, because you've had 2 out of 3, you've absolutely smashed, and you've had a blinder. And if all 3 are going well, then happy days. But it's really a large portion. If you carve out 2 or 3 hours of you time in the morning, it's a large portion of your day to really dedicate to yourself and get wins on the board. And then, things carry on from that. Positivity leads to positivity. And so I'm a big one for morning routine. I've always been, and as I said, right now, I'm not fully dialed in, but I'm also in a quite a happy place and got good things going on. And so it's all good. But yeah, that's what I would say. Do you have a morning routine? Do you do stuff like that? Yeah,
I'll tell you, but I was just going to respond to what you said, because you shared some really great stuff there, and thanks for that. I must say, though, you must have the fittest dog in Melbourne, have you?
I've got a little sausage dog, and he's actually a hilarious little fella. So
does he bark like hell at everybody?
Oh my god! Oh mate, when he catches you off guard, because I'm obviously really close to him a lot of times. We're laying in bed, on the couch, whatever. If he barks and catches me off guard, I feel like I've been electrocuted.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he swims as far as he can swim absolutely forever. I take him for 5k runs with me along the beach. Yeah. He's got the reputation of being the fastest sausage dog in Melbourne, and I haven't put him in any races yet, but he's classic. He's a class.
What's his name?
Ziggy. He's named after David Bowie.
Ziggy Stardust. Yeah, of course.
Ziggy Star Dog.
Star Dog.
Yeah.
Look, I'm 100% with you on the morning routine. I think it's a vital thing. Let's face it, it's how we start our day, right? And if we have the attitude right from the beginning, and the aptitude, I think that's the other important aspect of getting into your day, then you can really set the foundation. And I think it's a bit like building a house, isn't it? If you've got a great foundation at the beginning of your day, and you can ride that wave for the rest of the day. And I actually use the analogy of surfing a lot in my life, in terms of, when you're on a good thing, it's like, and I'm not a surfer, by the way, but I just stole that from the surfing community, but riding a wave in life, we all have good days and bad days, and I kind of attribute the bad days to falling off the wave. And the good news we can always look at, though, is that we can paddle back out and we can catch another wave, right? And there's always going to be another wave that we can get on. So, yeah, we might have a wipeout from time to time. It may hurt. We might hit our head on the bottom of the sand or whatever, and we might swallow a bit of water, but get back up and get out and catch another wave. So I started my day at 4 a.m. this morning. I get up, I do some little brisk exercise, which means running with my dog. I've got a dog as well. I get back, I do some core exercise for just about 20 minutes. Then I get into doing a bit of work because everybody else in the world's asleep. It's a great time for me to get some productivity done. I find that those first couple of hours is when I'm not going to be hassled by anybody else. I do intermittent fasting every day, so I don't have any food until about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. So food's not an immediate option for me, and I get myself into the day by doing those positive things. And I always find that productivity, when I find I'm getting stuff done, then I'm on a bit of a roll. So whatever comes for the rest of the day, it seems to work well for me. And like you, it's a very personalised thing, whatever works well for you. And it's something that takes time too, I feel. I'm 55 years old. It's taken me a long time to get into the zone. I've been living on a sailboat for 3 years, and I'm only now just starting to feel as though I've got all the pieces of the puzzle have actually come together, and some people find it at your age. Some people don't find it at all, right? They go through their entire life.
Definitely don't have it all figured out yet, Mark. Don't worry about that.
But I actually sat down and said to a very close friend of mine the other day, I said, look, 2020 has actually been the best year of my life, and in absolutely every aspect. So, I'm a case study to say, hey, there might be a global thing going on at the moment, and there's chaos everywhere, and there's a lot of people that are unhappy, but there are some people that have bucked the trend through the things that they've done, and
for sure.
I've known a lot of people that have done that this year, so hats off to them. But hats off to you, because that's a great way to start your day, and I love the competition flavour of it too. Let's get up tomorrow and try and do one step more, right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I wrote a blog about it ages ago, and people were loving it. Just gamifying it, making it fun. And when I wrote this blog about it, I didn't tick off everything as one point. You can, if you want to really gamify it, you can give a certain weight to a certain thing. Like say for example, my morning, if I'm to make a green smoothie, it's probably a 1-pointer. But if I'm to walk my dog for an hour, it's probably a 3-pointer.
Yeah, right.
So it's pretty cool. You can do some cool things and get yourself into a good fun routine and challenge yourself. But morning routine's a good one for sure for me. That's always been my go-to for just feeling pretty good.
Brilliant.
And on top of things.
Bill, we've rushed through our time today. I've really enjoyed chatting to you, but before I let you go, I want to have one last go at a question for you, and that is, what's the next 12 months hold for you, mate? What's in the crystal ball for Bill Kerr?
At the moment, so I'm really focused on Athena, my business at the moment. We're growing really, really fast. We're in the enviable position of, we're growing like 30% month on month, and it's really, we turned all of our marketing off. I've been trying not to grow because I'm always focused on delivering a good product, and we need to continually scale our team to be able to deliver a good product as we grow really fast. So at the moment we're trying to scale our team really quickly so we can turn ads back on and continue to grow, because what we do, I feel like we're a really positive impact on the world. I really do believe that. We employ people all over the world. We get clients awesome results. Our internal team, culture is absolute paramount for us, and it's great for me. So every stakeholder at my company, internal and external, I feel like we're a real positive impact on. And because of that, I feel like we should try and grow and scale as hard as possible, as fast as possible. So at the moment, I'm really just focused on Athena and two things really. And we're in a position at the moment where we've just onboarded a new head of culture, and her whole sole prerogative really is to turn us into a B Corp. So it's going to be a slow process, but over the next 12 months, trying to make sure that we have everything from culture, remuneration, benefits, business model, and so forth, absolutely tight, verified. You are a business that's doing good for the world. So that's really one of our focuses. And the industry that we're in, there's nothing defensible about it. We have no tech or IP. So the only thing that I think is going to be defensible in the future with Athena is our brand. So I'm really trying to, build a brand that's incredibly defensible. Like Patagonia, I'm wearing a Patagonia jacket.
Yeah.
I've got a Patagonia t-shirt that I wear that fits like shit.
Yeah.
Is not comfortable at all. Cost me about $100, but it's made out of recycled plastic bottles, so I'll pay it every day. They've got a defensible brand because of what they stand for. So at the moment, I'm just laser focused on trying to grow Athena, get the greatest workplace culture that we can for remote teams, and also build a brand that people know and love for no other reason other than what we stand for. And I think we'll be wildly successful if we do that. So I'm just focused there. Otherwise, I want to, once lockdown is lifted, I want to ride my new Royal Enfield motorbike to Uluru and back around probably the long way. Don't know what the long way means, but I know the way I'm going to get there. I don't know how I'm going to get back.
Yeah.
So that's on the cards, and I want to just get back and probably surf a bit more and start training again. And haven't trained much this second lockdown. So everything's good, mate. Just going to continue business as usual, and just see what comes of it, I guess.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great way to wrap it up because there's a lot of fantastic stuff in there, a lot of positivity. And Bill Kerr, it's been a pleasure having you on the Humaneity podcast today, mate. Thanks very much for giving me your time on a weekend here in Australia.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mark. I really enjoyed it. I was really stoked to be invited on the show. So hopefully, I wish I didn't tell that story about the toilet incident in South Africa. I'm regretting that one. I'm really not a dirtbag to whoever's listening to this show. I really am not, but that is the true, authentic story of what happened that night. So, I've really enjoyed it, and glad that we connected. You seem like a really switched-on guy and a good contact to have going forward. So, it's all part of the podcast life, and it's been good.
Good one, mate. Well, enjoy your weekend, and I'm sure we'll catch up again at some stage.
Absolutely.